Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode here at The Damage Report, still under lockdown with something like 96 days to go until the election and about 2 years until the end of the pandemic, so we've got a lot of stuff on the horizon for you. It's an exciting show, but not necessarily the show you were expecting. Today is Wednesday, that's true, and Wednesday remains a big news day, and we certainly have that. But I did see one comment on YouTube from someone saying that they're looking forward to TYT's Captain America and Black Panther doing the show. Look, according to this commenter, we have Captain America, but Jordan Uhl, which hero are you?
Oh, what a setup. I was not prepared. Sorry, I'm not.
Who do you associate with? Like, who's your guy or gal? Either way.
Oh, man. I don't know. I see. This is something I don't bring up frequently because it's just the reaction I get from a lot of people is always like kind of a knee-jerk one. I'm not really into superheroes. Never seen any of the Avengers. I don't watch the Marvel movies.
You've never seen any of the Marvel movies?
No, they just don't. I mean, I saw one of the Spider-Mans. It's just they've never really been interesting.
Was Tobey Maguire in it?
No, I saw one of the new ones.
Okay. Well, those are good. Those are good.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, well, don't feel bound by Marvel. Well, we're going to give you some time. Through the course of this show, if there is a hero that you think of, feel free. Maybe like the president from Independence Day, or something.
There we go.
There we go. Anyway, okay. Well, in any event, we're glad to have you. Okay, Jordan Uhl stepping in. JR is going to be on the show. That's tomorrow. Captain Super Nightman suggests Ant-Man, but you haven't seen Ant-Man, so we're not going to stick you with that. But anyway, very lucky to have Jordan here, not only to give his perspective on the news, but at the close of the show to give his perspective on a story that I don't think I'm leaping ahead of myself in saying is the result of Jordan's reporting. And I can't wait to talk about it. So that's at the end of the show. Before we get to that, though, we've got a lot on coronavirus. I want to sort of catch up with a little bit of the international research that's been done over the past few weeks, the past month or so. We've learned a little bit about some of the lingering effects after one recovers from coronavirus, as well as more information about the propensity for kids to spread coronavirus. So we're going to have all of that. We've got Portland-like tactics in New York City now, and a lot more besides. If you are already in the chat, as close to 3,000 of you are, please hit the like button, share the stream and all of that, and you can chat along. We'll be responding to your tweets and Twitch comments and super chats and all of that. With that said, you want to jump into it?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Avengers Assemble. That's a reference you don't get.
I don't.
You don't? Okay. Okay. Donald Trump is finally starting to show that he is being emotionally affected by the ongoing pandemic, and he has some empathy for once in a video we're going to show you. Unfortunately, he feels bad for himself and has empathy for himself.
He's got a very good approval rating, and I like that. It's good, because remember, he's working for this administration. He's working with us, John. We could have gotten other people. We could have gotten somebody else. It didn't have to be Dr. Fauci. He's working with our administration, and for the most part, we've done pretty much what he and others, Dr. Birx and others who are terrific, recommended. And he's got this high approval rating, so why don't I have a high approval rating with respect, and the administration, with respect to the virus? We should have a very high. So it sort of is curious. A man works for us, with us very closely, Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx, also highly thought of. And yet they're highly thought of, but nobody likes me. It can only be my personality, that's all.
Well, it's certainly not helping, but I don't think it's only that. Jordan, so he's sort of making the case there that because Dr. Fauci is so, and I love that there's a cat crawling over your head right now in the video, because Dr. Fauci has a really good approval rating, he is very happy about that. And then he starts talking about how I didn't have to have him, I could have had anybody, I'm really happy for him though. But anyway, and then talks about how he should be getting some of the credit. Now, I assume what like the Dr. Fauci stuff for me has sometimes lapsed into weird hero worship that I think is kind of unnecessary. But what do you think about the people's different view of the advice of like Dr. Fauci and then the overall government response?
I mean, this seems to be like he's upset that the ratings are different, but like this all boils down to him openly contradicting Fauci, not really explicitly heeding his advice. Family members, like Trump's family members, have posted things even as recently as earlier this week, contradicting like pretty base, like standard CDC claims about like coronavirus prevention, wearing a mask. This is like they're pushing conspiracy theories. But Trump seems to think just that he's like associated with him and that Fauci is still at the CDC, that he too should be seen in such noble regard. But you look at how Trump has responded to this crisis overall. You look at now how deaths are piling up and how we are leading the world in number of infections and deaths. It's a complete and total disaster. We're the laughingstock of the world. That's why people don't approve of the job he's doing and really wish Fauci was kind of at the helm on this front.
Yeah, I don't like people, if they like Fauci, the reason, like part of the reason they like Fauci is because Trump doesn't like Fauci. I think that that's part of it. I think people, I don't know that a lot of people would consciously recognize that, but I think that's part of it. I get a kick out of the fact that this guy works in the Trump administration. Trump absolutely despises him. That's some schadenfreude that I need in 2020. But if they like him in terms of what he has said and done, they believe that he actually follows the science and will give advice that largely reflects that. That doesn't mean that that's what the government has done. And Trump can't now whine saying, well, if you like Fauci, you should like me, when we're in like week whatever of his war against Fauci, dispatching his surrogates and all of that to, basically create Oppo research reports on Fauci and to continually claim that he was wrong or misled people early on. But anyway, look, that's the personality stuff. He's obviously so jealous. In terms of the substance, though, if he actually was going to be driven by just wanting people to approve of him, then he should change what he's been doing, because as of July 28th, more than 4 million cases have been confirmed just in the United States. There have been more than 150,000 deaths. There were 1,144 deaths reported just yesterday. We're back above 1,000 for multiple days now, close to a week. And in terms of his approach, you can't pretend that you're Fauci when just 2 Sundays ago, you were still calling testing overrated. And right now, your goons are negotiating with the Senate and saying that there should be less money for testing and tracing. There should be no overarching government response. All of that. Your rhetoric is horrendous and uncaring and ineffective. Your leadership is totally absent. And when the Senate tries to do your job for you, you try to step in to stop it. It's not about throwing a pitch. It's about the effect you've had on the pandemic, and yours has been abysmal. Yeah,
I think you summed it up perfectly. This is deeply rooted jealousy from Trump, because it's not really about performance. It's about, as we've seen so many times before in his presidency, it's about media coverage. It's about like kind of like a pop culture aesthetic. Like he just wants to be like the Kennedy type president where everyone fanfares over him, but like his own incompetence gets in the way, and just like now his own like narcissism is impacting how he responds to a global pandemic. It's absolutely incredible that we're in this moment. And even still, I mean, I know there's no floor for congressional Republicans, but even still that they're kind of going along with this bogus hoax narrative, just to some respect. You saw people aren't wearing masks in Congress. It's flabbergasting. I have no idea what the future has in store for us, because I feel like it could only get worse now.
Yeah. I mean, like he's like, what? Come on, Fauci's great. Just look at me like Fauci. Yesterday he was retweeting the demon semen woman saying that COVID has a cure. No, but but if it has a cure, then why hasn't Trump used it? The whole thing, like, I guess I'm glad that their new conspiracy theory is at least based on saying that the coronavirus is real. That's a step up. Unfortunately, they think that you get it by having sex with witches that aren't real. They're mind witches. I don't know. Yeah, that may be part of it. It's not just your personality, Trump, although that's certainly not helping. Literally anything, least of all yourself. Okay, before we jump into other stories, and we do have several more coronavirus stories related to go to, we had a suggestion, Jordan. Monk Yenema says, Jordan is more of a Spawn guy. Came from hell, helps poor homeless people.
I like that.
You a Spawn fan?
I will fully embrace that. I don't know. I've never seen it, but sure, I'll take it.
So Spawn is pretty good. It's one of the few comics I actually read. My brother bought like the first 40. He was sure that they were going to shoot up in value, and maybe they didn't in the end. And for trivia buffs, my hometown of Bridgeport, Connecticut has not produced a lot of famous people. There was like one person on Cheers, but the star of Spawn did go to my high school. So we did have one big celebrity there. And he was in The Dark Knight. Anyway, okay, so moving on to other comments. Stephanie Carr says, Morning John and Dragon Squad, time to refresh our coffees and talk some politics. TDR is the best part of TYT. Thank you. I'm always saying that. Don't tell them I said it, though. Madeline Welsh sent in a super chat giving a shout out to Jordan's cat.
All right.
I saw a comment saying, Jordan, move your damn head. People just wanted to see the cat.
Oh, I get it.
David Baker says, don't be a Trump chump, be a TDR champ and like the stream. That's a mouthful, but thank you. Appreciate it. Gregory Jones says, eat more Faucio as part of a nutritional breakfast. Ew, Gregory, but thank you. Miriam Wilson says, Jordan, your cat is so cute. Your cat is very cute. And a natural showman or show kitty. Yeah. Kayla says, first time catching the show live in a while. Had some medical issues that made me need to tune out for a while. Not figured out yet, but it's time to get back in the game. Hopefully the super chat makes me feel better about checking out for a month. Kayla, it sucks that apparently they haven't figured it out. I hope that they do very soon. This is, it's never good to have ongoing health concerns, but especially during a pandemic. And we hope that watching the show can help to distract you a little bit, liven up your day. And thank you for your super chat. Okay, Chub Toad says, is JR cosplaying as Jordan or is it not Wednesday? He's going to be on tomorrow. Irie says, John, need a new game. Ask really chill guy about Luigi board, vape sim, or better yet, grab the ranch. Kyle will tell you it's $20 and can flip the table. Ask Kenny, stream gang, let's go. I know three of the words in that. What is going on?
Irie absolutely incredible Twitch regular. Those are all references to games that we've played on stream over the past couple of weeks. I love Irie Man.
Are they video games, or was he saying those are tabletop simulator games?
So we were finding like custom made tabletop simulator games a couple weeks ago, and just like absolutely absurd ones, which is like a bottle of ranch dressing on a table with no objective really. So we just called it Grab the Ranch, and there was like Connect One.
Oh my God.
There was just a vape on it. I love Irie Man, a Twitch regular, absolutely incredible person.
That sounds fun. I spend a lot of time on tabletop simulator actually. And speaking of the custom games, I was really mad. So I'm not going to be specific here. But I made a mod for Tabletop Simulator for a game that I'm very much a fan of. I don't want to be specific because I don't want to be banned or whatever. And I will say it's a sweet mod. Oh my God. So high quality. And I released it and it did very well. It got very fast, like over 1,000 subscribers or whatever. However, in terms of the charts on Tabletop Simulator, someone on the same day released their custom Animal Crossing game they made. Because Animal Crossing was so big, a couple months ago, and it blew mine out of the water, and I was very mad at that custom game. But anyway, Allison Pullian says, someone show Moana to Trump and tell him he's Maui. He can still be the hero he already thinks he is. Yeah, I don't think he'd make it all the way through, but Moana is one of my favorite of those movies. Over on Twitch, Thunder Voice says, I am 100% here for the cat content. John and Jordan are nice too. And Trashy Plays says animals are innocent, while Gina J, the introvert, says, John, I hope you show little Abby today. I will have to do that because Abby has been groomed, and she is half the dog she used to be. So you're going to see that. And with that, why don't we jump into very sad news that I don't have any sort of ironic happiness about. Anyway, okay. Let's talk about Representative Louie Gohmert, one of the absolute goobers of the House. Louie Gohmert does not take this pandemic very seriously, and he has not from the very beginning. He told CNN last month that he was not wearing a mask because he was being tested regularly for the coronavirus. Now, this is after, by the way, already representatives, it's a huge list. A bunch of them, mostly Republicans, one Democrat, had already tested positive for the virus, alongside Senator Rand Paul. So he was fully aware that despite the fact that all of them were getting tested, some of his colleagues were coming down with it. And, like with Rand Paul, potentially spreading it to other people before their relatively persistent testing actually picked up on it. You might remember that back March 9th, he returned to Congress despite potentially being exposed to the coronavirus at CPAC, saying he's advised by the CDC that going into self-quarantine isn't necessary. Yeah, I'm sure that's what they told him. So, look, he just didn't take it seriously. And perhaps it's because he was fairly convinced this entire time that he had the solution. It was a powder that might have been involved with hydroxychloroquine. It wasn't really clear when he talked about it, but he said it's being used in Germany as a mist. Healthcare workers go through a misting tent going to the hospital, and it kills the coronavirus completely dead. Not only right then, but anytime in the next 14 days that the virus touches anything that's been sprayed, it's killed. You'll be shocked to find out that's all nonsense. But it was reassuring to Louie Gohmert, and it might explain why Manu Raju, reporter, said, "I've spent a lot of time in the House gallery watching Gohmert frequently interact with colleagues and not wearing a mask. He doesn't maintain social distance and talks at length with members. When I asked Gohmert, he said he would wear a mask if he got COVID." So look, all of this irresponsibility and then that pledge means that you know exactly where this story is going. Representative Louie Gohmert is tested positive for the coronavirus, according to multiple sources. Because of course he's going to. He's a moron who doesn't care about his own health or the health of people around him, and he runs around talking about dust mist. What do you think, Jordan? You shocked?
No. And yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I want to laugh or just cry or what, because I mean, it's ironic that he got it. It's kind of funny. You don't really feel bad for him because he knew the risks. He was in a position to know way ahead of everybody else. Congress knew at the onset, and he took no precautions. And his ignorance also impacted how he responded. Him and congressional Republicans have treated this as a complete joke. And we've seen everything from just delayed response to an inadequate response in different relief bills, wanting to cut unemployment benefits. And now they're trying to push money toward the defense industry, toward weapons and F-35s when people are struggling. So it's like this guy kind of got his comeuppance, but I don't think he'll even learn. That's the thing. I think he'll just, because he's going to have great healthcare treatment, which is something that millions of people around the country don't have. He's going to be fine, right. Probably.
Yeah, he'll probably be fine, as all of them are. And of course, I want him to be. You know, hate him. I've hated him for a long time. I don't want him to be sick, and I don't want him to spread it to other people that are not in charge of how irresponsible he is. I have someone that I know that is in a very bad way thanks to coronavirus. My heart goes out to literally anyone who's going through that, including Louie Gohmert's family that's probably very worried about his health and probably was worried about his behavior prior to him getting it. But anyway, as you said, now is the time for him to change his behavior, because finally it has actually happened to him. And as Manu Raju said, he said that if he gets it, he's going to wear a mask. He's going to be more responsible. But if you watch his channel, you probably know where this is going. According to Catherine Falders, Representative Gohmert went back to his Capitol Hill office after testing positive for COVID-19 at the White House. The question now is, where does he quarantine? Probably at work, because I doubt he's going to take it any more seriously now than he was, because as soon as he finally was diagnosed with, again, a fatal illness, he went back to work. How many people work at his office? I don't know. Hopefully none were in the office at that time, but probably some were. Hopefully they're taking it more seriously. The entire thing is just so sad. I was talking to my mom yesterday, and she was talking about how shocked she was at how selfish everyone was being. That she walks around Florida, and even after this huge spike, nobody wears masks. And I said that my theory has always been that we all have a circle that has to be breached before we take things seriously. And that circle is a different size for different people. For some people, it's the size of the world. If something happens somewhere in the world, you're going to have empathy for those people. It doesn't matter how dissimilar they are from you. And then for a lot of people, the circle just gets progressively smaller. It could be the country, or it can be your race, or your religion, or your neighborhood, or whatever. For some people, it is smaller than their own body, that even when they directly experience this, that is not enough to actually get through to them and cause them to change their behavior. We are too selfish of a country, too, enthralled with our own independence and feigned greatness for us to learn, for too many of us to learn anyway. And that is sort of sad in the best of times, and we are far from the best of times right now. And his sort of behavior writ large across a gigantic percentage of the American population is why we continue to have the problems with this pandemic that we do.
Yeah, I know. I think that even though it's a small anecdote, it's demonstrative of his kind of larger worldview. Going back to his office, just carelessly like putting his staff at risk, kind of shows how he sees and treats people beneath him. There were people, you might not have seen it, but there was another report that there were people in his office who were scrambling to get out before he got there because they didn't want to get it. Some people, sadly, were still there, and probably as he's treated every other interaction, he just didn't take any precautions. Yeah. So he now has put his staff in jeopardy. He's been at the Capitol Hill gym, I saw reported this morning, since contracting it. And yesterday, he was with Bill Barr. They were before the hearing or after the hearing. They were like in close proximity.
Let's keep that going. That's fine. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, he was and the Republicans at the hearing yesterday were like complaining that Nadler was telling them to wear masks. Dude, you guys were being exposed right then.
Yep.
And like, you know, like I think my wife told me that I think was it the wife or the mother of the Long Beach mayor? The mom passed away. Like, there have been so many representatives, senators who've lost people. Elizabeth Warren had a relative who died. Maxine Waters had a relative that have died. Our representatives have generally been okay, shockingly. They've done very well, and no one in the White House has died, but lots of people have gotten sick, and some of their family members have died, and it's still not enough to get through to these people. Like, do you think Louie Gohmert's going to be much more responsible, speak more responsibly about it, tell his constituents to wear masks? I really doubt it. Okay. More bad news coming up in just a sec. I do have to read some comments, including a super chat from my brother. So, my brother Mark sent in a super chat saying, "You won't be laughing when I'm rolling in all that sweet, sweet comic book money." So, look, here's the thing. When I made the comment about the Spawn, I honestly don't know. For all I know, they are worth a lot of money. I haven't actually checked. I wonder if you have. You might have forgotten you even had those Spawns until I reminded you. Do you still have them? I wonder. They were very entertaining, and I did like the movie. I hope that they remake it, but they should give that guy his role back, or at least put him in the movie. That's for sure. Okay, let's see. Audrey Wellham, thank you so much for your super emoji. Appreciate it. Adriana wants to know where the Kite is. Bring him back.
She's napping now.
Let's see. Exoteric is saying, police uniforms say police, FBI jacket says FBI. I'm a vet. My name tapes say Marines, even when I'm in a war zone. So DHS with a police patch is not IDing. Yeah, we're going to be talking about that a little bit more later on. Matthias suggests Doctor Strange for Jordan, but he's not going to know who that is, so we can't go with the Marvel. Doctor Strange is pretty cool, though.
Is that nice? Is that a nice comment?
He's pretty cool.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's cool.
All right.
It's Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh, he's cool.
Yes, he has magic. Bradley Slaughter says, was just listening to Sam Cedar during an interview, and they made a good point. The South has always had the ideology that nothing goes above their right to their own freedom, even during a pandemic, and even while their entire economic system was based on denying people their own freedom. Yeah. Okay. Jack Strack says, Trump is like that Starbucks Karen who wanted part of the GoFundMe money that was raised for the barista she harassed. Exactly. Like, these people are popular because you attacked them. Now you want the goodwill that was given to them as a result of your attack. I guess he was involved. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, as always, thank you for gifting people subs on Twitch. She's gifted 213 gift subs. Above and beyond, thank you, as always.
She's great on Twitch.
100%. And by the way, Jordan, there's a comment from producer Bart who says, Jordan, you're on page 1 of my book of cool for not having ever seen a Marvel movie. You're not missing much, my friend. Hashtag MCU, not cinema. Bart, get out of my document, okay? Oh, they're not cinema? I thought they were when I was enjoying them for literally years. I thought I was seeing film. Oh, I was enjoying it because they're good stories and good characters. I've seen, yes, multiple times. They're awesome, Bart. Go watch 2001 again. Enjoy some cinema. I'm going to watch a good story. He's not going to like that. Okay, with that, let's turn back to serious stuff. And everybody, if you haven't already hit the like button, please do that. You may not know, but Jordan, his cat, has a collar that's actually synced up to the like button, and it gets more, excited as more likes roll in. So if you want to see it, hit that like button. That collar was not cheap, nor is it real. Okay, with that, let's do it. Many people here in the US and internationally have died as a result of coronavirus. A lot more have, of course, survived the illness, but that does not mean that they get off scot-free, that they're going to be perfectly fine and back to great health. And I want to show you the results of a couple of different studies indicating one form that these lingering effects can come in. The first is a German study that examined the cardiac MRIs of 100 people who had recovered from COVID-19 and compared them to heart images from 100 people who were similar but not infected with the virus. More than 2 months later, infected patients were more likely to have troubling cardiac signs than people in the control group, with 78 patients showing structural changes to their hearts, 76 having evidence of a biomarker signaling cardiac injury typically found after a heart attack, and 60 having signs of inflammation. Now bear in mind, these were relatively young people, average age 49. These are not 70, 80-year-olds. They were healthy before they fell ill in the spring. Many of them have just returned from ski vacations, so they were active exercisers as well. None of them thought they had anything wrong with their hearts, and it's likely, although we can't say for sure, that prior to getting coronavirus, they did not. But after getting it and getting past the virus, they had some of the same signs of heart damage that come from having a heart attack, despite the fact that they had not actually had one. So we're going to have another study, but Jordan, we've been hearing about, the organ damage that comes as a result of having coronavirus. I had mostly thought that it was lung damage, but now we're finding out that the heart can also be negatively impacted as well.
Yeah, this is scary. And the more we learn about it, the scarier it gets. And as we get more and more research, and we find out more of the consequences and long-term health consequences of this virus, it seems like it's like running parallel with how dangerous and reckless governments are acting, which is kind of scary, because now we're at a point where people are just so desperate to reopen, to save small businesses or whatever. It comes at a time when we're finding out that it's even worse than we had originally imagined. So I hope that people take this to heart and spread this kind of research and findings to warn their officials about the risks. I don't think it'll have an impact, sadly. I'm sorry to be a downer, but just business interests seem to reign supreme throughout this entire thing. And it's even to the point where we're going to have mass evictions and people just don't seem to care. I mean, what's people having heart attacks, or heart damage as a result? They're not going to care.
Yeah, we've been trying to raise awareness. We did yesterday and the day before about the eviction crisis. And unfortunately, look, I'm going to keep it real. Even, on a channel like this, where I have to assume our audience is more predisposed to be interested in those sorts of things, neither of those videos did very well. Either the overall numbers, the racial inequality that's going to come in the eviction crisis, people just aren't as tapped in or as interested, and that's unfortunate. We got comments, by the way, on YouTube. Siv Harkin says, I still have triple vision and sore throat and fatigue from the virus from March. God. That's brain inflammation, and I'm nervous about clots. We've certainly heard about that. There was also Swin Sassy says, I still don't have my stamina back and fatigue, and I had it in March as well. We're seeing other comments to that effect. So yeah, you do continue to see these effects. We have one other study, though. There's another German study which analyzed autopsy results from 39 people who died early in the pandemic and whose average age was 85, found high levels of the virus in the hearts of 24 patients. And we have a comment from Matthew Tomey, cardiologist and assistant professor of medicine, who said, patients come to my office saying, hey, I'm a 31-year-old who used to run and be completely unlimited in my exercise, and now I get palpitations walking across the street, or I get out of breath climbing up to my second-floor apartment. Individuals are exquisitely tuned into their own capacity for exercise, so I take that very seriously. Our challenge is to understand the why. And look, I get, if you're Donald Trump and you're trying to get people to not think about the fact that so many people have died, you're going to say things like, and he has many times, the vast majority of people recover, and that is true. And perhaps the vast majority of those people won't have these horrific long-term effects, but many of them will. And we're talking about, if there's 4 million cases, how many tens or hundreds of thousands of people, in the end, when we finally get past this pandemic, are going to have ongoing lung damage or heart damage. Think about the cost to them in dealing with these lifelong issues. And then again, writ large across the country, think about how that's going to affect America, not just until fall or next year, but for the rest of their lives, for literally decades, we're going to be affected by this. And so again, this is not a thing where, hey, it only kills a small percentage, so let's just get everybody infected and then get it over with, at the same time. No, think about the havoc that is going to be wrought on the people who survive it from that strategy. And many people in positions of authority still think that's the way to go. It's not, and we're seeing more and more evidence to that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to take for people to care. It's just a complete and total disregard for human life. And people, seen as just kind of subhuman or just cogs in a machine.
Yeah.
That's really startling what you said earlier about the homelessness and the kind of like whether it registered for people. I think it's just because it's so existential and it's so big that people cannot comprehend the severity. I think that might be what it is. And we're a society that kind of has been cultivated and groomed around this idea of instant gratification through different services that we've now like expedited through shipping and deliveries and social media giving you immediate dopamine hits and that kind of stuff, that now we see so much instant gratification, and we correlate that, we extrapolate from that and assume everything is has an instant remedy.
Yeah.
And while this is like not going away, people can't really comprehend that in mass, and our leaders especially don't. I think they know deep down how bad this is, but here we are. We're adding another consequence to this, and they do not care. The people are going to be. Where are they going to go when they lose their homes? What are they going to do when they have this heart damage for years? Our healthcare system's already broken. We don't have a living wage. And we have millions of people who lost their healthcare as a result of the job losses from this pandemic.
Yeah.
What are they expecting this to look like in like 5 months?
Yeah. Yeah, and when you say they, like, obviously, Trump and the governors and things like that, they don't give a damn. They've made this as bad as they possibly can. But they're not the only people in they. Like, as we're seeing this, and we're trying to figure out what is this going to look like in a year, in 10 years, in 40 years, the DNC just had their platform, and they don't support Medicare for all, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of all of their voters say that's the policy they want. They're not only giving the middle finger to all of the people who are already being affected health-wise from the pandemic, as well as the country at large, which would massively benefit from that policy change, but their own base, which has been yelling at them for literally years now that they need to move in this direction, and they're still saying no. It not only lost, it lost overwhelmingly. Yeah, and so there's a lot of people who are setting up a situation that is going to be devastating for a lot of people for a lot of years. Okay, let's move quickly into one more thing. And look, I understand some of this is a little bit removed perhaps from the news of the day. I just want to make sure that our audience, especially in a time where there's so much misinformation flowing around, gets the best information possible. And these are, like, I'm giving you specifics about these studies. You can go look at them if you want. They are not the last word on these things. But we do need to know what actual doctors are doing and saying, and not just people who talk about witches and, demon semen and stuff like that. So with that, schools are set to reopen. Many will be doing distance learning, but unfortunately many will not. And many kids will be going back in and associating with each other, hopefully with safety, precautions put in place, but for many of them, perhaps not. And we have been told along the way that this is not a concern because kids don't spread coronavirus, which isn't a good enough response because kids are not the only people in schools. But let's say that they were. Let's say that we were just concerned about kids spreading it. Well, we're finding out a little bit more thanks to a South Korean study, a massive study involving tens of thousands of kids. Here is what we know based on that. Children under 10 were roughly half as likely as adults to spread the virus to others, consistent with prior studies. That may be because children generally exhale less air, and therefore less virus-laden air, or because they exhale that air closer to the ground, making it less likely that adults would breathe it in. Okay, so look, that overall, not bad news, although them being half as likely makes me only half as concerned. It's not 1%, and it's not being sold to us, by the way, as kids just being half as likely when, our politicians are talking about it. But sure. Now, even so, other studies have suggested that the large number of contacts for school children who interact with dozens of others for a good part of the day may cancel out their smaller risk of infecting others. Okay, so that is for less than 10. They're half as likely, but that might, be washed away by the fact that they have terrible hygiene and they interact with everyone. The issue is that for kids who are in middle and high school, that group is even more likely to infect others than adults were, according to the South Korean study. Some experts say that finding may be a fluke or may stem from the children's behaviors. Look, if it's a fluke, then fine. We don't have to be worried. If it stems from other children's behaviors, then I don't really care what the cause is. If it turns out that kids above the age of 10 are more likely than adults to spread it. And there, we're not talking about just high school seniors. We're talking about most of school. How many students fit into that group of being in 7th grade, 8th grade, and high school, Jordan? That is millions of people who we find out are not, superhumanly protected from spreading the virus. They're actually more likely than you or I are to.
Yeah, I mean, I remember there was a moment early on where there was a study circulated that showed like 1 to 2% of kids are going to die as a result of schools reopening prematurely, and that was just kind of passed along on Fox as like, well, you know what, but this is just kind of a necessary evil. I'm sorry, 1 to 2% of kids in schools are going to die, and you're just like okay with it. But now we see the consequences as in terms of spreading and prolonging this virus, which will lead to more deaths. And this really shows that this type of this view and this style of governance, especially from the right, has never been about pro-life. It's never been about protecting children or protecting the life of a child, because here they are willingly and deliberately putting kids in unsafe situations, and then the consequences, a prolonged virus, people will die. Absolutely grotesque.
Yeah. And it's happening now. I saw kids today on Twitter, photos of them, wearing their little masks on the yellow school bus. And I just think
so grim.
What are they? First of all, it's 100% grim. But then also I love kids, but do you think those kids are going to keep those masks on the whole time? They're not going to touch each other. Look, first of all, having the masks in general, probably a good change for schools because kids spread disease every single day in schools. But it's not going to be enough. Teachers are going to get it. Teachers are going to die. I saw a photo of a teacher with a sign holding up saying, "I can't teach from the grave." This grim situation. We have been, if the virus, if I could snap my fingers and the virus went away, this was an absolute debacle, a tragedy, a disaster, the likes of which we've never had in America during my life, if it ended today. But it isn't going to end today. Today, they're going to report that more than 1,000 more people died. And they're setting up situations that seem maximally designed to spread the virus. And now, through new vectors, through kids, we're going to send all the kids back in. They're going to spread it to each other. They're going to come back. They're going to spread it to their families. And their family members who have to go to work are then going to spread it to other people. I can't think of a thing you could do other than maybe telling people not to wear masks, that would be more likely to cause more people to be infected and eventually hospitalized and die as a result of this. It's an absolute disaster. Okay, let's relax with a couple of comments just for a second. CDC says, Brett cares about TYT.com comments more than John. I see what you're doing there, because I'll read more. The thing is, I don't think our show is broadcasting on TYT.com during the pandemic, so I can't read the comments. I can't read member comments because it's not broadcasting to members. That is a tech problem. Doesn't mean I don't love you. I do. We're trying to manage a lot of different things simultaneously here. John, thank you for your super chat. Okay, let's see. Obi-Mom Kenobi sent in a comment on Twitch saying, Bart, get out of my document should be on a t-shirt, just saying. I don't know a lot of people would get the joke, but I will see if we can. Jordan, I don't know if you're seeing this, but Edwin, a producer too, says, Jordan's superhero is the paper boy. Let me see if I can bring that up.
Oh my god.
I don't know who the paper boy is. I will say there was an NES game called Paperboy. I don't know if you've played it. I remember
that was the
awesome.
first that was the first Game Boy game I ever had. Was Paperboy. Really?
I remember that game being great. It probably doesn't stand up, but I'd like to try it again.
At the time it was very fun.
It was, yeah. You gotta dodge so many things. Okay, with that, let's turn from dark to darker here. Okay. Misinformation is all over the internet when it comes to coronavirus, especially this week with that new group of doctors getting millions of views on the video that Breitbart put on Facebook. And look, the sum total of things like that and the pandemic video and the misinformation on Fox News has left a lot of Americans believing absurd things about coronavirus. Let's talk about one in particular, some polling. Was coronavirus planned by the government? That somebody, we don't know exactly who, but somebody planned for this pandemic and unleashed it on us. Well, 5% of all Americans believe that that is definitely true. 1 out of 5 Americans believes that it's probably true that the government planned this pandemic. That's 25% of the American public. 1 in 4 believe it's either definitely or probably true. Only 36% say it's probably not true or definitely not true. A lot of Americans just don't really have a position on that. That is 1 in 4 Americans believe that no, it was planned. It was planned. We're going to break this down along a few other different demographic axes, but what do you think, Jordan?
It's alarming, and it shows kind of how people getting their news from social media and the lack of kind of moderation and content curation on these platforms leads to this kind of stuff. People just want to believe this because it helps explain something that's so grandiose and so existential that, you know, it helps them make sense of something that is otherwise incomprehensible. Mm-hmm. That's sad because the end result is distrust and skepticism toward, and as it manifests as distrust and skepticism toward health professionals. They think that they're out to get them. There's distrust of doctors, and the end result is this is prolonged. It impacts people and the health consequences we talked about in the earlier segment. More of that, more death, more illness, more job loss, more homelessness. Absolutely terrible. But I can't help but again reiterate that huge tech giants and social media platforms that are knowingly allowing this content to spread is so reckless. Yeah. They know it's on there. They know what spreads in Facebook groups, and Facebook just is taking a hands-off approach because they don't want to be like the arbiter of you know, truth and information. But like, that's your responsibility. You're one of the biggest companies in the world, and people get their news from you. You have to do that. Sorry.
Yeah. And look, Facebook eventually took down that video, but it already accrued more than 10 million views. And they said today, you know, sorry it took a while. There was like this thing that happened that made it take longer. Was there? As it got millions of views? How many videos get millions of views every day? You didn't notice that? So they took it down, but they also left it up for a while. And one theory as to why it was left up for so long was because it was being spread by Breitbart, a group that has been whitelisted by Facebook as a purveyor of accurate news. They've done this multiple times. So here's the thing. That information was, according to Facebook, was both false and dangerous. It could lead to people getting sick and dying. So if Breitbart is spreading that, are they, you know, an accurate source for news? Are you just going to take down this one video, or are you going to view Breitbart in a different way? Perhaps have a little bit more oversight of future videos that they put up to try to mislead people about this pandemic. Unfortunately, we know what Facebook is, we know who Zuckerberg is, and we know that that's never going to happen. He believes Breitbart's more reputable than the New York Times, plus the Washington Post, plus whatever you want. And that means that you had pandemic, and then you had this, which is even bigger, and God only knows what's going to come next after, you know, 200,000, 250,000 people have died. They'll come up with some new thing about how it's secretly frogs that are spreading the coronavirus, and you only have to consume a frog, and then you'll be okay. I don't know. It's hard to predict. It's hard to get ahead of how crazy people are. By the way, on this, a few more numbers on how it breaks down that people think that this is essentially planned. Interestingly, and I would not have predicted this, women are more likely to believe. 29% of women believe it was planned by powerful people. 21% of men. Shocked by that. In terms of age, younger people more likely than older people to believe it. Even though, in my experience, older people believe whatever crazy thing you tell them on Facebook. No hate for the older. It's just, generally, I've seen that. What's interesting to me, too, is when you break it down by party, 18% of Democrats, or those who lead Democrat, believe that it was centrally planned. 18%. For Republicans, it's 34%. So they're twice as likely to believe that this was centrally planned, despite the fact that their people are in charge of government. I have to assume when they answer this, they mean the Chinese. If I had to guess, that's what it would be.
Yeah.
Maybe the deep state.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of also why we've seen kind of like a reluctance from even the media entities like Sinclair that was considering running that pandemic hoax video. Like, it's just like part of a larger like American capitalist scheme to undermine the Chinese government. So that fits their narrative, even if the consequences are, you know, Americans putting their own lives and others around them at risk. The end goal, the end objective is that, you know, like the conclusion that you pointed out, people would take that away as saying China did all this to hurt us. So it's kind of a xenophobic and anti-China objective.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it's been fascinating since Trump got elected that, like, this movement, which has been obviously is government is the most evil thing imaginable. Government is the source of all of your problems. And then all of a sudden, hey, we control all of government. And I wondered as they were making that transition, like, well, then how, man, they're really going to have to change how they view this and how they talk about this. But they haven't. They've just invented other layers of government to hate. It's not the government we see, it's the deep one below it. That's actually what has all of the power. It's great that you can be complete insiders and still present yourself as total outsiders as you control every branch of government effectively. Okay. Let's check in just a little bit. Over on hashtag TDR Live on Twitter, Albino Bad Guy says, before Paperboy was an NES game, it was an arcade game that had a bike handle for a controller. I spent way too many quarters on that thing, LOL. That is cool. I hadn't seen that before. So it is actually the game. That Paperboy that he sent was from the game. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that in like 25 years.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. There's a lot. I'm trying to catch up. JSTWR Stoll says, did you see David Pakman's video, How Trump Could Still Win? I did not. Jordan, did you happen to see that?
I did not.
I didn't. I can sort of guess, and there are certainly still a lot of ways that he could still win. If you look, the polls, look a certain way. I totally get that. And if you want to have a little bit of confidence, I get that. But don't let that define your behavior, because he's going to do everything he can to stay in power, and he has a lot of ways that he can do that. Stephanie Haynes says, MCU, with the exception of a few films, is quite awesome. At least watch Guardians of the Galaxy. If that doesn't make you feel everything, I don't know what else will. So that's advice from the fans to you. Let's see. Okay. Ryan L. says, my buddy told me he read an article recently that said the Sinclair Group pushed out that documentary saying Fauci created the virus. Heard of this? So what I had heard was that they were planning to run parts of Plandemic, but I think they backed off of that. I'm not sure.
They did.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, Media Matters had reported on that, and that spread a lot farther. And they were eventually backed off after like a pretty loud outcry.
Okay, that's awesome. Media Matters for the win, as so often is the case. And by the way, Lazy Peon just sent in a super chat saying, John, you're live on TYT.com. Oh, cool. I didn't actually know that. Jordan, any European or Nordic metal you listen to?
I'm reluctant to answer that on stream just because Nordic metal, and it's just like there's just too many loose associations with National Socialist black metal, which is just like not good.
Oh,
so you have to be really careful about who you. I wouldn't feel comfortable just I don't know who is associated with what. That's a scene that has like some pretty dark corners that I'm just not really comfortable with because of their ideology. So I kind of avoid it mostly.
So, like, you might have liked a song, but you don't know that maybe the lead singer went to a meeting once and...
Yeah. I'm just not... I can't endorse anything from that scene because I just don't know, and I wouldn't want to support them. It's just a lot of it's also covert and not a fan.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that you have to be worried about that, but probably safe to be. Yeah.
Yeah, someone's referencing in the chat, like, one of the worst actors in that scene right now. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I don't even know what most of this means.
They're referencing the singer of Burzum, who is just like a white nationalist who burned down churches.
Oh,
or white supremacist now. Yeah.
Oh, God. Burn down church. Jeez. Okay. Okay. Well, with that, let's turn back to the news. For many weeks now, we've been talking about what's going on in Portland as Donald Trump has sent in his goons, which are maybe some cops, maybe some soldiers, maybe some mercenaries. We don't really know. Isn't America great? And they've been brutalizing people, and we've been showing you those videos. Well, they are now being dispatched to other cities, and that is going to cause all sorts of new problems. We're going to show you a video, though, from New York City that is not actually Trump's goons, although you could be forgiven for not at first realizing it. Here is the NYPD arresting an activist. Okay, so that apparently just happened, by the way, in New York City. And I want to give credit, by the way, to Michelle LaHouque, who apparently took that video, originally an independent journalist who has more information available on her Twitter and her Substack as well. So we have a little bit of information about that. But just to be clear, as I said in the intro to the story, that is not this force, this Trump force that's gone in. That's the NYPD in plain clothes, snatching 18-year-old Nikki Stone and dragging her away in a Kia.
Yeah, it really underscores like just how hollow the New York City government and the response to these uprisings has been. Like they painted Black Lives Matter on the street outside of Trump Hotel or Trump Tower, and de Blasio had tweeted like, "What's happening in Portland will never happen here." Here it is. What are you going to do about it? I don't know what else to say, like what to make people care. I mean, we've got jackbooted thugs throwing people into unmarked vans. Is that a society you want to live in? Like, we live in a police state, and people are just like making justifications for it. Like, oh, well, she might have damaged property. Like, maybe you could just respond a little bit differently than abruptly grabbing someone off the street and throwing him into an unmarked vehicle. You have no idea what's going on. And what I'm hearing and what I've heard from people on the ground in Portland, what's happening there is people are denied due process. They're having their phones taken away from them, never given them back. They're snooping through their personal information, their contacts to develop like networks and to see who they talk to. This is extremely shady, and the deployment, in which we could see later in other cities, the deployment of DHS and ICE and BORTAC, extremely dangerous threats to our freedom and liberty and a right to assemble.
Yeah. And by the way, like you said there, is this the country you want to live in? Is this what you want to see? Hold on to that thought, because we have someone who very much does like to see this, and that is the country they want to live in, which we'll be playing in just a little bit. Someone very much on the opposite side of things is Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who tweeted out that video saying, "Our civil liberties are on brink. This is not a drill. There is no excuse for snatching women off the street and throwing them into unmarked vans. To not protect our rights is to give them away. It is our responsibility to resist authoritarianism." And that's the thing. Again, this is just the NYPD that apparently has seen what Trump's people are doing and have probably rightfully come to the conclusion, we can get away with it. No one's going to stop us. We can just start to do that. And so they say in a statement that she was wanted for damaging police cameras during 5 separate criminal incidents in and around City Hall Park. We'll see if that ends up being remotely true. They said in their statement, when officers from the warrant squad took the woman into custody in a gray NYPD minivan this evening, they were assaulted with rocks and bottles. So 2 things in there. First, about the supposed assault. Clara Kraber, who was there, said none of that happened whatsoever. We literally turned the corner and were met with a line of police who attacked us without warning. Kraber said officers pepper sprayed the group, quote, seemingly at random during the arrest, adding they were trying to make it painful to be there. Another witness told Gothamist that the protesters had been skateboarding and eating pizza before the van's unexpected arrival. And you saw at the beginning of that video that Nikki was on a skateboard when she was grabbed by what hopefully ends up being cops, I guess, because there's now a precedent where theoretically 4 to 5 guys wearing vests can just drive around and snatch people away. And if you fight back, you better hope that it's not secretly police or something, and not just some random person using the insane fascist environment that's cropped up in America to just start kidnapping people. Because this certainly has become a great time to be a kidnapper.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely horrifying. I mean, what's de Blasio doing? What is Cuomo doing? Like, I'm sick and tired of this vote blue no matter who. I can't even say what I want to say, but I'm tired of this vote blue no matter who, because here you go. This is the end result. You have a Democratic mayor with a Democratic governor. What are they doing in response? I'm tired. Painting Black Lives Matter on the street in front of Trump Tower isn't going to solve the problem. It's absolute garbage.
Yeah. It is garbage. And by the way, the NYPD can say, oh, it was a gray NYPD minivan. It was a Kia. That's all it was. It was a car. Yeah. It was a car. Okay, put a cop in my car, and it's a maroon NYPD Scion. No, it's somebody's car. It's not a police car. It's not a police minivan. It's just some car. And again, if they can do it, then theoretically, some crazies like militia members and Boogaloo Boys and the white supremacists who have been infiltrating these protests to try to cause damage. We found out that umbrella guy was in fact a white supremacist. That shocked a lot of people. What if they start doing this? They could pull up in a minivan, drag away a protester, and they won't fight back because we've now been trained that these are just cops. These are just Trump's goons, whatever. They're, mercenaries or something. And that's what worries me, and it sounds like it worries you, Jordan. Doesn't worry everybody, though, because when Chris Hayes tweeted out that video saying this is kidnapping, Ted Cruz responded, odd term for an arrest. And look, Ted Cruz is obviously the senator in this story, but Chris Hayes' tweet had any number of replies that were just, oh, what did she do beforehand? This is just an arrest. Why are you fighting back against the cops? So to your question earlier, is this the country we want to see? We need to remind ourselves that there's a lot of people that this is exactly the country they'd like to see. They're not scared of fascism because they believe, probably falsely, but whatever, that it won't actually come to hurt them, just the people that they hate.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if like a Unite the Right person or an Unite the Right attendant was thrown in an unmarked vehicle. What Ted Cruz's reaction would be. Mm-hmm. I'd wager that he would say, oh, well, I might not agree with their worldview, that we shouldn't have this. Well, now that it's happening to one of his political enemies, he doesn't care. And it really shows how hollow this posturing is from the right around like liberty and freedom and assembly and all this kind of stuff. They want to be constitutionalists and originalists when it's convenient for them. When it happens to political enemies, they don't care.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't remember exactly who tweeted, but there was a tweet to the effect of, if that van had pulled up and the cops had just taken people's AR-15s away, the right would be losing their minds. But when it's a human, they don't care, so long as they have been trained to believe that's probably a leftist or something. Or at least somebody you don't have to worry about. They're probably just a terrorist. They're Antifa. I want to quickly read a section. Cody Johnston posted a section from a book, and I just want to read a little bit just to give people something to think about. Fascist violence was neither random nor indiscriminate. It carried a well-calculated set of coded messages. That communist violence was rising, that the democratic state was responding to it ineptly, think about Trump's quotes about democratic mayors, and that only the fascists were tough enough to save the nation from anti-national terrorists. An essential step in the fascist march to acceptance and power was to persuade law and order conservatives and members of the middle class to tolerate fascist violence as a harsh necessity in the face of left provocation. It helped, of course, that many ordinary citizens never feared fascist violence against themselves because they were reassured that it was reserved for national enemies and terrorists who deserved it. Every part of that is playing out right now, from Tucker Carlson labeling Antifa, everybody involved in the protests, as a terrorist that should be frog marched away. He's been doing that for literally months now. Everything Trump says about we need to go in if the Democratic mayors aren't going to save things, we need to go in. To people responding to people like Chris Hayes saying, well, it's just they shouldn't be breaking the law. If they don't want to be brutalized, they shouldn't break the law. We're seeing all of it play out. It's sad.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. We should be able to learn from the past, from other people, other countries that had horrific experiences with this, that had to suffer for countless years, countless lives lost. We could learn from that, but unfortunately, people like Ted Cruz are always going to be there to lick the boot, and tell you to just lay down and have it placed on your neck.
Yep.
Okay, let's see what's going over on Twitch and Twitter before we go into our last story. Gabby says, for sure, this is on hashtag TDR Live, Jordan Uhl's cat is my like button supervisor. Also, Bart trolling John in real time on his own show is the best part of the damage report. Just saying. I disagree. Love you, Bart, even though you're tasting movies. That's going to wind him up. Okay, let's see. Over on Twitch, Fairy Cat says, back in the 40s and 50s, no one was advocating for kids to catch polio in order for herd immunity to happen. I don't know why people think this is any different. Yeah. Steph Mont says, my kids, 7 and 4, are sick constantly when they're in school and daycare. Last year, they missed at least once a week because of the colds, the flu, ear infections, so many things. Kids don't know how to socially distance. They chew their masks. They shove things in their mouths. They're adorable little petri dishes. Exactly. And so we are setting up an adorable little disaster right now. Okay. With that said, though, we're a little bit over, so why don't we jump into our last story, because this is one that we have to have Jordan's perspective on. Ready for this?
Ready.
Okay. Big news for the military. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to be doing a little bit of curtailing of your recruitment, introducing a pair of amendments to a defense appropriations bill that would bar the military from using funding to maintain a recruiting presence in U.S. schools or on digital streaming platforms such as Twitch. Accompanying those, she said, whether through recruitment stations in their lunchrooms or now through esports teams, children in low-income communities are persistently targeted for enlistment. In many public high schools where military recruiters have a daily presence, there is not even a counselor. As a result, the military stops feeling like a choice and starts feeling like the only option for many young, low-income Americans. And that is, of course, why they set up in these schools in these particular areas, knowing that those are people that they're probably going to be able to snag. Now, Jordan, we talked about this topic a couple of weeks ago. Like, am I crazy, or is this not a direct result of you engaging with Army esports on Twitch? Walk us through it. What happened?
It's been quite a couple of weeks. Yeah, it started with the Peace in the Nation. I'm grateful that they heard me out and understood the importance of writing about this. And in that piece, I detailed the shady giveaways, the fake giveaways, the recruiting tactics employed by the Army and the Navy on Twitch. Immediately, the next day, Twitch responded and said the Army has to shut down these giveaways. They're scammy. They don't follow guidelines. You're out of TOS. Okay. That was great. But this kicked off like a larger round of reporting on the Army esports team and the Navy esports team and how they were lying to viewers about their objectives, saying, no, we're not here to recruit. We're just here because we love video games, and how they were admitting on stream that they were blocking terms like war crime and Eddie Gallagher in the chat, and blocking users who were asking about these things. And that led to the Knight First Amendment Center at Columbia University sending a demand letter to the Army and the Navy saying, no, you can't do this. This is against the law. This violates the First Amendment. So they are representing me and potentially more users who were blocked for pointing out the history of U.S. war crimes and mentioning people like Eddie Gallagher. And then it really took off when AOC took notice and introduced this amendment. And just yesterday in the House Rules Committee, they made an order, the amendment to remove funding or to prevent any funding for the military to recruit on Twitch or in esports, which is great. So we'll see. It goes to the floor of the House later this week. But from what I hear, it will be made in block, which is kind of how they just group amendments together for huge omnibus spending bills like this. And it should just pass with a voice vote. That's the expectation. So we'll see. I mean, tougher road ahead in the Senate, and then ultimately if it gets to Trump. But it's a great starting point, and I am floored that we're here.
Yeah, look, obviously there's great reporting in the Nation, and I know Vice did a story about it and all that, but like, I feel like it really was kicked off by their ridiculous, heavy-handed reaction to what you had said originally. You are our Twitch warrior. Maybe that's your superhero. And by the way, I know you're really humble and everything, so you don't want to like claim credit or whatever, but I will say that you don't have to take it from me. My favorite reporter in the entire world said, Jordan tries his hand at reporting once and immediately has more policy impact than I've had my entire career as a journalist, LMAO. And that's Ken Klippenstein, and that's the Ken Klippenstein guarantee.
You can't argue with that.
Exactly.
That's so nice.
I mean, that's amazing. Like, I've tried to push for things, and sometimes those things have happened, but I know that the connection was not there, like trying to get Fox hosts to tell people to wear masks and all that. But it was a quick turnaround too, a couple of weeks. So I only ask that you use your newfound powers wisely and responsibly. With great Twitch power comes great Twitch responsibility.
Okay. You have my word, John.
But anyway, and to AOC, I'm so glad that, like, I have to think it's her that's doing this. She is younger. She gets gaming. She games. Like, would other representatives do this? Probably not. This is one of the good things about having someone that's younger and more reflective of the actual country. Like, yes, it's cute when she plays Animal Crossing, but it reflects that she is more like her actual constituents and she gets those concerns. And now it's turning into legislation, which is awesome.
Yep.
Okay, Jordan. That was a big show. Really appreciate you joining us, basically at the last minute and filling in for an awesome show. We always appreciate you having you here.
Of course. Thanks for having me, John.
And where can people see more of your work?
I'm on Twitter at Jordan Uhl.
Awesome. Everybody go check him out on Twitter. Thank you as always, and have a good one, man.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody. A couple of quick things. I wanted to respond to a couple more messages. I also wanted to ask you a question. So, because I'm an idiot and I broke a cable, this is actually not the camera I normally use. It's a different camera, but I did try to make it look as much like the other camera as possible, trying to fool you into thinking until I get a replacement camera that is the same one. Please post in the comments a 1 if you couldn't tell the difference, or a 2 if it did look different, and maybe I'll have to do a bit more work to make it match. But so let's see those 1s and 2s come in. 1 if you couldn't tell, 2 if you could tell. And while you're doing that, I'm going to take a look at some of these comments. I don't know which producer put this here, but said it is 100% going to members. I publish it to the site every single day. Thanks for noticing. I apologize. I just didn't know. I'm glad you've been doing that. I didn't know it was possible. So thank you for doing that. Okay. I'm seeing 1, 2, and the rest 1s. So I guess it was a success. My wife and I did our best to match it, and I think it... And now they're being spammed out, so you're not seeing the more 1s, but there's a lot coming in. So thank you for that. Okay. Let's see. BK over on the Super Chat says, join the movement your veteran grandparents died for. Anti-fascism. 100%. Someone says the background's more blurry. It shouldn't be, but interesting. Nicholas Caesar says, it's almost like they're Thanos solving overpopulation and global warming by killing off half the population. Chris says, wake up, Antifa equals anti-fascist, which all U.S. citizens should espouse. 100%. Okay, thank you, Avtar. Appreciate it. I see some comments about Nordic rock, but I don't know what these words mean, so I can't read them, but thank you for the super chats. I do appreciate that. Let's see. Sue asks everyone to not lick the frog. Definitely don't. Robin Elizabeth, thank you. Lakilo says, hey, John, did you get my email? Oh, yes, so I did. I meant to respond by email rather than this. So I'm going to be vague, for privacy purposes. So I'll say, first of all, and no one's going to know what I'm talking about, except for Lakilo, but I want to respond individually to Lakilo. So, first of all, I have I can't even tell you how much empathy for your experience. I definitely do. I can only imagine. Really, I can only imagine. And so I definitely feel for you. I would say, in terms of what you said about the other person, though, one, people disagree on the network. We don't control what people say, in literally any way. We never tell people what their views, what views they're allowed to express, and that sort of thing. And I would say that doesn't really have too much to do with this, because it's much more of a personal thing, and I totally get that. I would say that this individual has talked about their own experience, like what you expressed. Obviously different in the details, but abusive nonetheless. This person has had that experience. And I would say that it is not in any way my place to tell people how to process or respond from that experience. Everybody's going to do it differently. And I understand if there's massive disagreement. And like I said, I can only imagine either of the experiences. I would say that what they said comes from them dealing with that experience as well. And there's just no way I would ever tell them to not express it or to think differently about it or respond differently. It's just not my place. So look, I feel terrible. I don't want any of our viewers to have a negative experience watching the show. But I can't tell people what to say or what to think. So I apologize for that. That's all I can say. I'm sorry. Okay. The Zuh says on YouTube comments, John, what would it take to get an interview with AOC? Well, we did before. It's been difficult. I'm not on NBC. I don't have a Showtime show. It's just harder. And I get it. She is super busy as anyone in the country. I totally get it. It would be nice to have her back on. Now, she's been on TYT multiple times, in the not too distant past, but not so much on TDR, which is unfortunate, but I do understand. And finally, I would say, because I'm fairly sure we are well into dog range. Arlene is... Thank you. So everyone, before I reveal, I told you that Abby was going to be groomed. So the shaggy mess that she has become is going to be different. And boy, is it different, because look at Abby now. Oh, Abby, it's okay, bud. Oh, Abby looks so different. She doesn't have her beard, her ears are so maintained, and look at her back fur. She looks like Falcor. So cute. And a little bit of Hilo, too. He's reaching out to me. Hey. Hey, buddy. This is Abby. She is very soft, and she smells absolutely amazing. So much so that I might call the vet and ask them what they used when they bathed her. But she's a bit traumatized by the experience, I think. I know that this is going to sound crazy, but maybe someone else with a dog can confirm this. As her fur grows, she gets more feral and wild and uncontrollable, and I think she starts to like it. So now she's back to her demure self, and she doesn't absolutely love it. But she's going to be so much more happy on walks because she's going to be less hot and everything. It's hot here. Yeah, everybody, it's a summer cut. Anyway, and Lakaila, I saw your response saying thank you for your response. I appreciate that. Like I said, nothing but empathy. Really. Okay, everybody, we have got an interview coming up. I am going to be talking today with Charles Booker, who, of course, came that close in the primary and has nothing but big things in his future. So we're going to be talking about some of those big things. That interview will be coming up. I don't know if it's going to be posted today or possibly over the weekend. We might have multiple videos. But again, all of these interviews don't go live. So you're going to have to go to the channel and check it out there. Check the channel at least once every late afternoon, early evening, and you'll see the videos that we've posted, some of which you won't have seen on this live show. But I do appreciate you watching the live show. And I will also be appearing on the main TYT show later on today with Anna Kasparian, so you can catch me there. Until then, thank you, and stay safe out there.